Project Management Insights, providing project managers with professional development in the interpersonal skills areas of leadership, team building, and communication. Hi everyone. This week I want to talk about miscommunication. It's one of those things that disrupts and creates issues on any project. So, where does the miscommunication occur in your team? Have you thought about this at all? Does it begin with you not being clear? My question then is, what will it take for you to be clear? Sometimes it's simply taking the time that you need to think things through. Yes, I know you're busy. Yes, I know that you think or believe you don't have the time. And yet the time that is wasted or the problems that are created by miscommunication, if they're fixed by you being clear and spending that time thinking things through and communicating clearly, then you will be saving yourself time. So there is real value in taking the time that you need to think things through in order to be clear, and then communicate that clear message. When you write things, do you read your messages as if you were someone who knew nothing about what you were communicating? This is a trick that I learnt when I was in a communication role in an IT team, because oftentimes we make assumptions that people understand what it is that we're talking about. And we're quite often very, very wrong, very far from the mark, that people really don't understand what it is that we're talking about. So, does what you've written make sense to someone that doesn't know anything about what you're communicating? That's the litmus test for it. So read it from that frame of mind, and if it's not the case that it makes complete sense, then go back and reword the pieces that are confusing. And there will be pieces that are confusing. Notice when these things, when you read them this way, that what you've done is you might use generic terms like us, we, they, it. These terms aren't clear. They make an assumption that people understand who the us, we, they, and it is. And believe me, I'm one of the worst people from using those particular terms in my communication, and I've had to retrain myself to not use them because they're not clear. They can mean different things to different people, and therefore the message gets mixed and not understood in the same way. So from that place, we're not then on the same page. We're not working from the same page. There's miscommunication and misunderstanding. Spell things out. That way, there can be no confusion about what it is that you are referring to. Spelling it out means perhaps giving them more information that they need. And again, this in the long run will make things easier and clearer. What I've found is when I spell things out, and especially if it's in relation to my understanding of something, someone will always come back, or usually come back to me and say, no, that's not correct. That's not the way it is. It's actually this way. It's like there's a reaffirming of my position or where I'm sitting or my level of understanding, and it helps create more and more clarity. And working in a project team, this is the best thing that can happen, because what it does do is gets you and everybody on the team on the same page with the same level of understanding. And from that base, you're all working and moving forward in the same way. No confusion, no confliction, no someone going off in one direction and you wanting them to move in a different direction. It creates clarity for the whole team, and this in the long term benefits the team. So stop and notice if the miscommunication begins with you not being clear, and do what it takes to get clear and communicate clearly. Now, the other thing you might notice is that there's someone in the team who doesn't pass on the communication. I like to call them the brick wall. They're the person, there might be a stream lead or a team lead or someone with an important role in your team. The communication goes to them, and for whatever reason, they don't pass it on. So everybody below them completely misses out on the communication. Then you wonder why things are going pear-shaped, why things aren't working, why things aren't being done to a certain time frame or in a certain way. So let's talk about how to deal with these brick walls. One way of dealing with them is to send communication directly to the team members. You might find that your brick wall's not happy with this because they like to be in control, and yet you need to be the one managing what's going on, and you need to make it very clear to your brick wall that everyone needs to receive the communication. And so they either pass it on or you send it directly to all of the team members. And now I know this might sound like a bit more work, and with today's modern technology, it's very easy to create an email list of team members. If you've got a project coordinator, they can manage this for you, ensuring that you have new team members added to the team list and others removed. As long as you make sure that your list is up to date, then there is that good way of sending out the communication where it's sent directly to everybody and then nobody will miss out. And if the brick wall doesn't want to read it, well, then that's their place. That's their business. It's not that the communication's not being passed on. The other thing you can do to deal with these brick walls is to confront that person about why they don't want to pass it on. And at least when you do this, you will understand why it's happening. What you'll find generally, in my experience, is that it won't be about you, it will be about what they're thinking and believing. So they're too busy, they're too important, they don't see that it's their role, they don't see that it's necessary. As I said, it'll be about them, it won't be about you. And at least with that understanding, you can talk to them and come and find a place of negotiated compromise as to what will happen in terms of communication getting moved on or not in the future. Now, the other thing you can also do is find other ways to communicate. And these days, again, with all of the software that's available, maybe it's about putting the communication on a team wiki or a notice board where it's accessible for everybody and by everybody. Maybe there's a way to do a video update or an audio update, or a phone hookup where people can hook in on a phone call once a week and gather all the information. That way then they're opting in themselves and not having to be reliant on someone else passing on the material to them. Team meetings are also another way that I've found really, really valuable for making sure everyone has the same understanding and the same messages. And I would do this far more above sending emails. Emails get lost, they get into busy inboxes, they're not open, they're not read, and therefore people miss out on information. If you hold a team meeting, people will generally come to a team meeting for the sake of hearing what's going on once a week, and that way then they are getting the messages. They are hearing what's going on. They are understanding where there are issues. They are getting on the same page in terms of who's doing what and where things are at. So team meetings are really, really valuable, and they don't need to be for a long period of time. They can simply be an update, and that way then people do get the required information that they need, and it stops miscommunication. Now, the other thing to do if you have this brick wall is to ask if there's someone that you can delegate the job of distributing the communication to get to distribute the communication. It might be this person sees himself as it's demeaning to them to have to pass on communication, and so get someone else to do it. Get someone else in the team that's willing and open to do it, to be the receiver of the message and let them pass it on. That way, then you can ensure that everyone does get the message. All right, so miscommunication. Are there people who are too busy to read the communication set out? This is the other issue with under the banner of miscommunication for me. And this falls into the bucket of those people believing I'm more important than anything you have to say. It's a bit of a problem belief when you have people on your team that you are relying on and depending on, and knowing that in order for them to be able to work and deliver what you're expecting of them, you need them to have been party to, understood, read, being clear on the communication that's been sent out. So the questions that I would ask in this space are, does that person really need the communication? And here it's a matter of, if they're so anti what's going on and they're so busy and they're so important, are you wasting your time? What role do they have in the team? How important is it? Is it critical that they are a part of it, or is there a way for you to have one-on-one discussions with them about what it is that you're seeking from them when you're seeking it, so that, okay, you make them feel important and get to what you need delivered from them, and they're not, I suppose, in the space then of being left out or not communicating clearly. Treat them in an individual manner rather than as part of the overall team. Again, you might consider this is going to take up too much of your time. And what I've found is, with these people, it's the best way for me to get the efficiency and productivity out of them that I'm after. If I don't do this, then they will become a huge problem in my team, and they don't communicate. They're just they become more of a problem, and sometimes even a risk. And so there's got to be ways to deal with it that stop that from happening. Is there a summarized version of any communication that could be supplied in some other way? Now, if people are too busy, okay, too busy doing what is my question. Too busy is a belief, and it might not be the case, and you can't necessarily get them to believe that or understand that when they're in that headspace. And so get a summarized version up somewhere, put dot points up on a wiki, or send it out as a one-page presentation, as an example. Summarize things in a team meeting, so that, or again on a call, so that at least, you might hope that they will opt in for a 5-minute call, as an example. Summarize it for them when you meet them in the hallway. Have those individual quick snap discussions, and believe me, a 5-minute hallway conversation to get the message across to them is much easier and better for you in the long run than trying to get them to read emails and messages that they just don't want to get to because they're too busy. Now, the other thing to consider is, what's the worst thing that could happen if they didn't get the communication? If it creates a risk for your project, then you need to address it directly with them. And this is something serious to consider, because the last thing you need is a risk to your project because they're not reading communication and or miscommunicating. So consider that. What is the worst thing that could happen if they don't get the communication? If it's just that they're not on the same page, well, okay, find a way to do that. If it creates a major risk, or even a risk that needs to be addressed in your project risk log, then it's definitely something that you need to work on as the project manager. It's your responsibility to mitigate the risks. So go about doing that in the way that I've perhaps described here, or getting to that point of finding other ways. But miscommunication creates problems for you in terms of delivery, in terms of clarity in terms of everyone working from the same page. So it is something that you need to address. Hopefully some of the things that I've spoken about here will be of benefit to you and help you. And I'm always open to you coming back to me if things aren't working, you want some other suggestions or ideas, or you have a specific situation that you want to talk to me about, then please just message me at podcast@projectmanagementinsight.com, and I will either come back to you personally or address it in a future podcast episode. Until next week. Thank you for listening to this Project Management Insights podcast. Be sure to visit projectmanagementinsight.com and sign up for our monthly newsletter or to receive updates on upcoming training.